Some people walk into a room, and without saying very much, everyone notices them. Not because they're the loudest, not because they're the richest, not because they're the most attractive. There's simply something about them. People enjoy listening to them, trust them, remember them. So what's their secret? Is charisma something you're born with? Or is it a skill anyone can develop? Grab your coffee, sit back, relax, and listen carefully until the end. Because today's episode might completely change the way you think about confidence, communication, and human connection. You'll discover what charisma really is, why our brains are naturally drawn to charismatic people, the habits that quietly make someone more influential, and why true charisma has far less to do with appearance than most people believe. Let's begin with the charisma myth, what charisma really means. Before we begin, let me tell you something. Many people spend years learning English but never become confident speakers because they're missing a clear system and the right support. That's exactly why I created the Native Flow English Coaching Experience. And right now, it's only $5. Honestly, you'll probably spend more than that on coffee, snacks, or things you'll forget about tomorrow. But improving your English? That can open new opportunities, new friendships, new jobs, and new experiences for years to come. For just $5, you'll get access to video lessons, books, worksheets, WhatsApp support, and our private learning community. If you're serious about taking your English to the next level, click the link in the description and join us today. Now, let's get started. The charisma myth. What charisma really means. When you hear the word charisma, who comes to mind? A famous actor? A successful entrepreneur? A great leader? Most people imagine someone who speaks confidently, walks into a room with a big smile, and immediately becomes the center of attention. But honestly, that's one of the biggest misconceptions about charisma. Because charisma isn't about being the loudest person in the room. In fact, many charismatic people are surprisingly quiet. They don't dominate conversations. They don't constantly seek attention, yet somehow, people naturally enjoy being around them. Why? Because charisma isn't about attracting attention. It's about making other people feel important. Think about someone you've always enjoyed talking to. Maybe they weren't the funniest, or the smartest, or the most outgoing, but whenever you spoke with them, you felt heard, you felt understood, you felt respected. And honestly, that's one of the foundations of real charisma. Now here's something fascinating. Psychologists often describe charisma as a combination of three qualities: presence, warmth, and confidence. Presence means you're fully focused on the person in front of you, not your phone, not your next sentence, not the people across the room, just the conversation. Warmth is the feeling that you're kind, approachable, and genuinely interested in others. Confidence is remaining calm and comfortable without trying to prove your value. Notice something interesting. None of these qualities require extraordinary talent. They can all be developed. Now imagine talking to someone who keeps checking their phone every 30 seconds. They interrupt you. Their eyes wander around the room. You immediately feel less important. Now imagine someone else. They maintain comfortable eye contact. They listen carefully. They respond thoughtfully. For those few minutes, they make you feel like you're the only person that matters. Which conversation would you remember? The second one, almost every time. And honestly, that's charisma in action. Now let's talk about another myth. Many people believe charisma comes from perfect looks, perfect clothes, or a perfect voice. But history tells a different story. Many of the world's most charismatic people looked completely ordinary. What made them unforgettable wasn't their appearance. It was how they made other people feel. Now here's something our brains naturally do. We tend to remember emotions more than words. Years later, you may forget exactly what someone said, but you'll often remember how they made you feel. Respected, inspired, confident, comfortable. That's why charismatic people leave such lasting impressions. They create positive emotional experiences. Now let's think about confidence. Many people confuse confidence with arrogance, but they're completely different. Arrogance says, "Look at me." Confidence says, "I'm comfortable being myself." Charismatic people rarely need to prove they're important. Their calmness speaks for itself. And honestly, that's incredibly attractive. Now imagine entering a room. One person spends the entire time talking about themselves, their achievements, their success, their experiences. Another person asks thoughtful questions, listens carefully, laughs naturally, shows genuine curiosity. Who would you enjoy talking to more? Probably the second person, because people love talking about themselves. Charismatic people understand this. They know that making someone else shine often makes them more memorable too. Now here's one final lesson before we move on. Charisma isn't a gift given to a lucky few. It's a collection of small habits: listening, being present, showing kindness, remaining confident, making people feel valued. Individually, these habits seem simple. Together, they become incredibly powerful. And honestly, that's wonderful news, because it means charisma isn't something you're born with. It's something you practice, something you build. One conversation at a time. The charismatic brain, why we're naturally drawn to certain people. Have you ever met someone for only a few minutes, yet felt like you'd known them for years? You couldn't explain it. There was just something about them. You felt comfortable, relaxed, interested. And honestly, that's not just coincidence. It's psychology. Because our brains make incredibly fast decisions about people, sometimes within just a few seconds, long before we truly know who they are. Now imagine meeting two strangers. The first person barely looks at you. Their answers are short, their face shows little emotion. The second person smiles naturally, listens carefully, seems genuinely interested in what you're saying. Who are you more likely to trust? Probably the second person. Not because you know they're a good person, but because your brain is constantly searching for signals of safety and connection. And honestly, charismatic people send those signals naturally. Now here's something fascinating. Human beings are social creatures. For thousands of years, our survival depended on living in groups. We needed people we could trust, people we could cooperate with, people who made us feel safe. Because of that, our brains became remarkably good at reading social behavior. We notice facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, even tiny details we don't consciously realize we're observing. Now let's talk about smiling. Not the fake smile people use for photographs, a genuine smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. When someone smiles sincerely, our brains often respond automatically. We feel more relaxed, more comfortable, more open. It's one reason charismatic people often seem approachable. Not because they're pretending, but because their warmth feels authentic. Now imagine talking to someone who's completely present. They aren't looking around the room. They aren't checking notifications. They aren't waiting impatiently for their turn to speak. Instead, they're completely focused on you. For those few minutes, you feel important. And honestly, that's surprisingly rare today. In a world full of distractions, attention has become one of the greatest gifts you can give another person. Now, here's another psychological principle. People are naturally attracted to emotional stability. Imagine a leader during a difficult situation. Everyone else is panicking, speaking quickly, making impulsive decisions. Then one person remains calm. They speak slowly, think clearly, and reassure everyone around them. Who naturally becomes the leader? Usually the calm person. Because calmness creates confidence, and confidence creates trust. Now let's think about energy. Many people believe charismatic people have endless energy. That's not always true. Some are energetic, others are quiet. The difference isn't how much energy they have, it's where they direct it. Instead of constantly trying to impress people, they invest their energy into understanding people. And honestly, that's why conversations with them feel different. You don't leave thinking, they're amazing. You leave thinking, I felt amazing talking to them. That's a huge difference. Now, here's something many people overlook. Charismatic people don't fear silence. If there's a short pause in the conversation, they don't panic. They don't rush to fill every second with words. They're comfortable. And that comfort makes everyone else feel comfortable too. Ironically, people who try too hard to appear interesting often become less interesting. The people who are simply relaxed often become the most memorable. Now let's talk about curiosity. One of the strongest signs of charisma is genuine curiosity, not pretending to care, actually caring, asking thoughtful questions, wanting to understand another person's experiences, listening without immediately turning the conversation back to yourself. People notice that, even if they can't explain why. Now imagine leaving a conversation. One person remembers everything you said. They ask about something you mentioned earlier. They remember your name, maybe even your goals. How would that make you feel? Valued. Because remembering someone is one of the simplest forms of respect. And honestly, respect is incredibly attractive. Now, before we finish this chapter, remember this. Your brain isn't searching for the most perfect person. It's searching for someone who feels safe, authentic, present, and trustworthy. That's why real charisma isn't about performing. It's about connecting. The strongest connections don't happen because people try to impress each other. They happen because people make each other feel understood. And perhaps that's the most powerful form of influence anyone can have. The habits of charismatic people, small behaviors that make a big difference. Here's something that might surprise you. When researchers study charismatic people, they rarely discover one extraordinary habit. Instead, they discover dozens of very small ones, tiny behaviors, almost invisible, but together they create a powerful impression. And honestly, that's encouraging, because it means charisma isn't built overnight. It's built one habit at a time. Now imagine meeting someone for the first time. Before they even speak, they look at you, Smile naturally. Shake your hand with confidence. Say your name. Already, the conversation feels comfortable, not because they've said something brilliant, but because they've made you feel welcome. Now let's talk about listening, real listening, not pretending to listen while thinking about your next sentence. Charismatic people don't listen to reply. They listen to understand. There's a huge difference. When someone feels truly heard, they automatically feel respected. And honestly, respect is one of the strongest foundations of human connection. Now, here's a habit that many people overlook. Charismatic people rarely interrupt others. They allow people to finish their thoughts, even when they disagree. That simple act communicates something powerful. Your opinion matters. Think about how rare that is today. So many conversations have become competitions. People are waiting for their turn to speak instead of actually listening. But charismatic people make conversations feel like partnerships, not competitions. Now imagine telling someone about a challenge in your life. One person immediately starts talking about themselves. The other asks, "How did that make you feel? What happened next? How did you deal with it?" Which person would you remember? Probably the second, because curiosity makes people feel valued. Now let's talk about names. One of the simplest habits of charismatic people is remembering names. It sounds small, but imagine meeting someone again weeks later. They smile and say, "Hi, Sarah, it's great to see you again." Immediately, you feel recognized, you feel important, and honestly, people love feeling remembered. Now here's another powerful habit. Charismatic people make others feel included. Imagine you're standing alone at an event, feeling slightly uncomfortable. Then someone walks over, starts a conversation, introduces you to others. Without realizing it, they've completely changed your experience. That's real influence, not controlling people, helping people feel like they belong. Now let's talk about humility. Many people think charismatic people constantly try to impress everyone. The opposite is often true. They're comfortable admitting they don't know something. They're comfortable asking questions. They're comfortable laughing at themselves. That authenticity makes them trustworthy. Because perfection creates distance, authenticity creates connection. Now imagine a leader making a mistake. One leader blames everyone else, makes excuses, protects their ego. Another says, "That was my mistake. I'll learn from it." Who earns more respect? Almost always the second, because humility doesn't weaken leadership. It strengthens it. Now here's another habit. Charismatic people are generous with encouragement. They notice effort, celebrate progress, give sincere compliments, not to manipulate people, but because they genuinely appreciate others. Think about the last time someone gave you an honest compliment. You probably still remember it. Words have power, especially sincere ones. Now let's talk about body language. Many people believe charisma comes from using dramatic gestures, but honestly, it's usually much simpler. Standing comfortably, maintaining natural eye contact, keeping an open posture, smiling when appropriate, speaking calmly. These small behaviors communicate confidence without saying a single word. Now here's perhaps the most important habit of all. Charismatic people don't enter a conversation thinking, "How can I impress this person?" They enter thinking, "How can I make this person feel comfortable?" That one shift changes everything. because the focus moves away from themselves and toward creating a genuine connection. Ironically, that's exactly what makes them memorable. Now, before we finish this chapter, remember this. People rarely remember every word you say. They rarely remember every story you tell, but they'll often remember how they felt when they were with you. Did they feel respected, heard, encouraged, comfortable? If the answer is yes, you're already developing one of the most powerful forms of charisma, because true charisma isn't about becoming the most interesting person in the room. It's about becoming the person who makes everyone else feel seen. The dark side of charisma. Why influence can be used for good or bad. Charisma is powerful, but here's something many people never think about. Power itself is neither good nor bad. It depends on the person using it. And honestly, the same charisma that inspires millions of people can also manipulate millions. That's why understanding charisma is so important. Not only to become more charismatic, but also to recognize when someone is using charisma for the wrong reasons. Now, imagine two leaders. Both speak confidently. Both know how to motivate people. Both capture everyone's attention. From the outside, they look very similar. But their intentions are completely different. One uses influence to help people grow. The other uses influence to control people. The skill is the same. The purpose is completely different. Now let's think about history. Some of the most admired leaders were incredibly charismatic. They inspired hope, encouraged cooperation, and helped people believe in a better future. But history also shows us something else. Some dangerous leaders were charismatic too. They persuaded people, created powerful emotional messages, and convinced millions to follow them. Not because they were always right, but because they understood human psychology. And honestly, that's why charisma should always be combined with integrity. Without integrity, charisma becomes manipulation. Now, here's something fascinating. Manipulative people often know exactly what others want to hear. They make promises, use emotional language, compliment people constantly, and create the feeling that they're the only person who truly understands you. At first, it feels wonderful, but over time, their real goal becomes clear. Control, not connection. Now imagine talking to two different people. The first person asks questions because they're genuinely interested in you. The second asks questions only to discover how they can influence you later. The conversations might sound similar, but the intention is completely different, and honestly, intentions matter. Now let's talk about trust, because real charisma builds trust slowly. Manipulation tries to create trust quickly. Think about that. People with good intentions don't usually pressure you. They don't force decisions. They don't make you feel guilty for thinking differently. They respect your ability to choose. Manipulative people often do the opposite. They create urgency, pressure, fear, or guilt, because those emotions make people easier to influence. Now, here's another important difference. Authentic, charismatic people are comfortable when others succeed. Manipulative people often want attention to stay focused on themselves. If someone else shines, they feel threatened. If someone else receives praise, they become uncomfortable. True confidence celebrates other people. False confidence competes with everyone. Now imagine a manager at work. An authentic leader teaches employees new skills, encourages independence, celebrates their progress. A manipulative leader wants employees to depend completely on them. One creates future leaders, the other creates followers. That's a huge difference. Now let's bring this lesson into everyday life. Social media, advertising, politics, business. Every day, someone is trying to influence your decisions, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for selfish ones. That's why critical thinking is just as important as charisma itself. Don't only ask, is this person convincing? Also ask, are they honest? Do their actions match their words? Do they genuinely care about other people? Those questions can protect you from being influenced by the wrong people. Now, here's perhaps the most important lesson of this entire episode. The goal should never be to become charismatic so people admire you. The goal should be to become the kind of person whose character deserves admiration, because charisma may attract people, but character is what makes them stay. And honestly, character will always outlast charm. Before we finish, remember this: the most charismatic people are not those who make everyone look at them. They're the people who leave others feeling stronger, more confident, more respected, and more hopeful than before. That's the kind of charisma worth developing. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, real charisma isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming the best version of yourself and helping others feel like the best version of themselves too.